Or what do you mean?
I mean, in terms of, like politicians are saying when it comes to either their personal life or because like this is the life we want to live, right? We want to be free. There's freedom. People should be allowed to say things they want to say, and then, but because of how things are now, you can't necessarily say the things you want to say and just then stay accountable for the definition you wanted to have. No, you are now responsible for every other definition that everyone else wants to come up with.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to stop someone from posting what they want to say. They do have the freedom to do that, which in Australia, obviously, in a democratic country, is something that we should be grateful for. And you're right that if you do post something online, you are responsible for it. And I guess it's just trying to as well, if you do say something, you should be able to explain it or back it up, because you're right, things can get taken out of context. If you don't explain it, people will assume it means something else purely because it's their understanding of that paragraph, because of their context, of their life experiences, like we sort of mentioned before. So it's up to you to be able to make sure what you say is very clear and simple, easy to understand, and hopefully not taken the wrong way.
But see, that what you just said there, we just had that conversation. You know, we've highlighted that this is the world we live in now. Social media, got to be careful. When we went to school, we were taught about, you know, because the internet was coming up and things like that, being careful, things you post, stuff like that. But we weren't given this conversation. That one you just had there, I feel like needed to be, or if it's, I'm not in school now, but like, is it
even with Facebook? When kids were in high school, we were posting on people's walls rather than having direct messages in the inbox, for example. So people would just post publicly between friends.
Yeah, without context. Like, without friends, context. It was a fun thing to do. Like, oh, I'm posting in your wall and everyone else gets to see that we're friends and they don't know what we're talking about, but we're friends.
And it's out there and you're inviting people almost to comment on it and things. That was just the way it was. People were just publicly posting on each other's walls. Now maybe people aren't doing that as much. They're using the inbox feature. I think as well, people are generally, a lot more careful with they're a lot more aware that they have to be careful.
It's a new evolution. This is evolution. Like, the human creature now comes with a phone.
It's pretty amazing, but quite surprised that it's taken this long for people to understand and realize that, what you posted is there forever.
But this is right. For example, right, you scroll into someone's Facebook, you go back 10 years, and they have a certain view. That view doesn't take into account, like, how the world is changing, what the world was like then. Like, you got to understand, and the people you're around, things like that. It's so, that's why, like, I like to be the person who, like, I'm not the first person to hear, oh, this person had this one Facebook post, now I need to feel this certain way about them. But people, I feel like that's what people don't understand. Like, you see this post that they posted 10 years ago, it's quick for you to go, 10 years ago, and that they're a bad person there 10 years ago, 10 years now. You forgot to take into account that person who might have been a bad person 10 years ago, everyone around them was bad. In fact, the whole world was bad, maybe, because that view, some views that we don't have today, the whole world, and when I say you and me, I don't know what view I'm talking about, but I'm saying the whole world is in, that was the accepted.
Yes.
And today, where you take this view that you're not that view, and you're so high and mighty, because that is now the new majority view that it's not accepted. To me, I look at that and I go, it's so cheap. It feels so... like, people start attaching what they believe in or what they stand for is in, no, that's an account for my personality. That makes me a good person because I don't feel a certain way about some certain thing. My major tangent for a small example... And I don't want anyone thinking that I have a gender to a certain side when it comes to politics. This is just me trying to point out these observations that I see, right? And maybe it amounts to the person that does have this view, but this is me just building those blocks to it. For example, Joe Biden. as like a presidential candidate, and well, he's a president-elect now, right? As this was leading up, I watched and I went, oh, I'm hearing about this guy who's been a politician for 40 years, and you watch as his views change, you see, and like, this is where I see that the kind of disconnect in politics, where you've got the people who are on the side, Democratic side, who are the more inclined to start calling people out for the stuff that they were saying 30 years, or they said this one racist thing or that one bad thing, are able to turn a blind eye to when it's the person that they want as president, because the other person they don't want as president, right? They don't like him. I don't personally like him either, the person that they don't want as president. So I can see where they're coming from, but I don't like Donald Trump as a person, but I then will not then go vote for Biden because that's my remedy for my personal issue. You see what I mean? Because I can take into account, because if I'm gonna be consistent. If I've seen videos of you having this racist agenda 10 years ago, I'm not going to quickly be the person to forgive that just because you've said something else. Otherwise, I've changed my views now.
Yeah.
You've changed your views now because the world around you has changed its views. That's why. It doesn't mean cheap to me. Tell me about your policies.
It's hard because views can change and evolve, and yeah, you're right. What's happening around the world does have an influence on that stuff. So, for example, highly contentious when it was the same-sex marriage the plebiscite that happened a couple of years ago here in Australia. It's taken decades for that issue to be considered a norm or something acceptable to talk about.
Yep.
Back in the 70s, no way.
Yeah. And that's how long ago was the 70s? Like, we're in 2020.
Yeah, 50 years
50
ago.
years ago. 50 years. Social media isn't 50 years old,
Even
is
probably
it?
in the 90s, it wasn't talked about.
But obviously back then they didn't have social media. Now we do. Great. Social media isn't 50 years old yet. But social media is growing. It will become 50 years old, and then it will have documented 50 years of, views and things like that. In the 70s, we didn't have that. But, you talk about it as this view that wouldn't even be discussed. It was like the whole world agreed. The whole world agreed. I'm going to say it. The whole world agreed. No, we didn't like gay people. Being gay was wrong. The whole world agreed, and there was the minority of people who were actually gay, or people who had that level of compassion and understanding, go, no, I'm against this, I'm wrong. But the whole world, whether they felt strongly about it or whether they didn't, they agreed a certain way. That's why certain things weren't passed. And then it comes to a certain time where the whole world doesn't agree anymore. And example being, if we had social media in the 70s, right? And people, yeah, there you go. You're imagining oh my God.
That would be crazy.
That'd be crazy because now I'd be able to pull up my auntie who I love so much. She's so, and if I was a certain thing that my auntie doesn't agree with, whether I was a different political agenda or whatnot, right? She still loves me. But I would be able to research and go back to 40 years ago when my auntie had this crazy skewed view and be like,
and that just changes your view of a person, doesn't it?
Yeah.